All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Paul Magnus. I'm president of the Republican Club of Harford County. I want to thank you for coming and welcoming you to our candidates forum night. We're going to get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. If I could have Brian Young, our Vice President, please lead us in the pledge, and if everyone could stand.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you could remain standing, and we're going to have Allison McCord lead us in our prayer.
God bless all of the veterans who we have here this evening. There's many of you who have served our country very valiantly. We thank you for your service. God bless all of you who have joined here tonight in the interest of leading us in responsible government that is true to the ideals of the framers of our Constitution. God bless everyone in their travels here this evening. And finally, God bless the United States of America.
Yeah.
Thank you, Allison. We're going to get started with our candidates forum shortly. Just a couple quick things. I went over with each of the candidates how things are going to work. What we're going to do is we're going to do the 2nd Congressional District candidates first. Then we'll do the U.S. Senate candidates, and then we'll do the Circuit Court judgeship candidates. Surprise, a little bit of a surprise for all of our candidates, but they should be happy. We're going to add a minute to your time, so you will have 4 minutes to make your presentation. And then what we'll do after each group is done, so when the 2nd Congressional District candidates have finished making their presentations, we'll have a short question and answer for them, and then we'll move on to the next group. So if I could have the 2nd Congressional District candidates over here to my right, and Larry Smith will be first up. Nancy Jacobs is on deck, and Vlad Deegan is in hold, as they say. Mr. Smith, if you want to come on up and say.
Good evening, everybody. It's really an honor and a privilege to be here. It's an exciting time to be running for office because we're blessed to live in exciting times. I'm going to forego the temptation to try to get my whole life story and everything I think or believe in a 4-minute speech, because all that's on my website, which is LarrySmith4Congress.com. But I want to try to get to the essence of why I'm running and talk about some other things about me. One of my favorite movies is Casablanca, when Humphrey Bogart says, I remember the day the Germans came into Paris. You wore blue, the Germans wore gray. And in New York, they were sleeping. They were sleeping all over the world. And that's essentially, whether you use the metaphor of sleeping or head in the sand, is where our country is politically and economically. And you know, Richard Douglas gets into that with his Rip Van Carden commercial that we've all heard at least 4 or 5 times now. And so what we need to do is wake up 2nd District, wake up the country, because when they realize that there is no such thing as a Social Security Trust Fund, when they realize that we're borrowing $4.2 billion a day with no plan to pay it back, when they realize that you can't give a Social Security tax cut because it's not a tax, it's a retirement fund and has to be compensated. When they realize a lot of these things, they realize that people like Dutch Ruppersberger have been keeping them asleep, telling everybody, shh, don't wake them up, they might find out the truth. And so I'm going to, as an Army Lieutenant Colonel, as a businessman of 14 years, as somebody who frankly had to suck it up and go to Afghanistan and endure that experience, as a father of an 8-year-old son, I'm going to have the energy and the drive and frankly the capacity to explain to the voters of the 2nd District why Dutch Ruppersberger is a threat to their children, a threat to their grandchildren, and frankly a threat to them. And I'm going to be everywhere at a time against an opponent who generally likes to hunker down and just show up when it's a happy hour or something, or when his mother is in the audience. So, again, I'm somebody who was training racehorses right over there in Hides, and I think Billy Boniface is here. He and I spent a few hours in the receiving barn, and that's a great life. It's actually, if you can handle the anxiety, but and it's very much like politics, because you're usually doing things wrong to the rest of the world. They don't notice the good stuff. But I would have loved to keep doing that, but the world changed, and there are higher callings. Billy heard that calling. He's now the head of the Harford County Council, and I heard that calling, and I'm running for reasons that money can't buy, and I'm ready to face the voters of the 2nd District. We're talking about the 2nd District, not Harford County per se. The 2nd District, which is 255,000 Democrats, 97,000 Republicans. I'm ready to talk to them about solutions to specific issues, not about ideologies. I'm not trying to win the ideology competition. I'm trying to actually solve this country's problems. And I'm very proud of the things I've done, and I'm very proud of what's on my website. And I hope you'll have some questions for me, because I have some answers. But if I bring up one thing, it'll let all the marbles out of the pinata or something. We'll be here all night, and don't want to do that. So I don't know if that's 4 minutes, but I think as Forrest Gump would say, that's all I got to say about that.
Thank you very much. I will.
58 seconds.
There you
Wow.
go. And for our candidates, young lady up here in the sweater is our timekeeper. Lori will be giving you, everyone's, Lori will be giving you the half sign when you have 30 seconds left, and we'll be giving you the high sign when your time is up. Ladies and gentlemen, Nancy Jacobs.
It's wonderful to be with you all. I don't think there's anybody in this room that I don't know, which is always a nice thing to have happen to you when you're coming out to run for election. I want to thank you all for coming out. I think it's great that you did. You know me. You know my leadership style. You know that I've been both the minority leader and the minority whip in the Senate. It's me and 11 guys. It's been an interesting ride. You know what I stand for. You know what I believe in. You've watched me. I'm a known entity to you. And one of the things, there's several things that I want to do when I get to Washington. First, I want to help repeal Obamacare. This is not something that anybody can do by themselves, but we need to work with people to do it. And if you've been following the Supreme Court, it's hard to believe that they got away with this crap. Second thing I'd like to do, I'd like to reform the tax structure. It's not fair, it doesn't work, it needs reforming. I'd also like to reform entitlements. We need to take care of our people, there's no doubt about that, but we need to do it in a conscientious, responsible way. And another thing that I think is a very novel idea, and I don't know why they haven't done this, I think it'd be a good idea if we had a balanced budget amendment. You know, none of us, when we're doing our monthly bills, none of us say, okay, this is how much I want to spend, and then fit the budget to what we want to spend. Well, that's what Annapolis and Washington does. Instead of looking at how much money we have to spend, how much money we should be cutting, they have no problem, especially Washington borrowing trillions of dollars. That's crazy. That's no way to run a budget. And I think that needs to stop, and I plan to help in doing that as well. Why me? You know me. You know that I've been a conservative all these years. You know that I stand up for what I believe in. You know that I work on both sides of the aisle. I would have never passed things like Jessica's law and other pieces of legislation. I passed the first gang law in the state of Maryland. We had a problem in Harford County and nobody was willing to admit it, and we did something about it. We still have a long way to go, but we did something about it. Twice I think I've been elected or chosen as one of Maryland's top 100 women. I'm really honored this last year to have been chosen by the Maryland State's Attorney Association as Senator of the Year. And they chose me because, and Joe Castley can tell you this, I work hard. I work hard on criminal legislation, and I work with the state's attorneys to make sure that we're passing good pieces of legislation. There's a number of more things I'd like to do, but I have a feeling I'm getting close on time. How much? I have a whole minute? Okay. If you pick up my palm card over there, you'll notice there's 3 people on it. Governor Robert Ehrlich, Congressman Andy Harris, and former gubernatorial candidate Ellen Sauerbray. I imagine that most people in this room have at one time or another voted for one of those 3 people. And I am thrilled that they have chosen me to endorse. They all feel like I am the only one that can beat Dutch Ruppersberger. And come November, I plan on doing that with your support. I'd like to thank you all for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it. It's wonderful to see everybody. Thank you.
Next, Mr. Vlad Deegan. Mr. Bly here.
You would know if it was.
Hello. So, I think this will be a little bit different than the other introductions. One thing I've observed throughout my life growing up in the United States, these great United States of America, is that Americans, perhaps more so than any other people in the world, believe in fair play. They don't like to be taken for suckers. Well, I think there's a growing sense in this country that that is precisely what has happened. They are being taken for suckers. This country became great based upon freedom, self-reliance, liberty, and a limited government. What is happening now? We have an ever-growing government, basically an unlimited government, a statist government. It isn't fair play when banks are too big to fail. Is it fair play when billionaires are bailed out and the common man is squeezed by constant inflation? Over the last 100 years, our dollar has gone down by perhaps 97%. Look it up. When I was a child, everyone was full of hope, looking forward to the future. I'm 47 years old. I grew up and you grew up believing in the exceptionalism of America. But it was exceptional because people were free and allowed to succeed. They were also allowed to fail. The government didn't make the choices about who succeeded and who failed. The one thing, the one thing that the legislators in Congress swear an oath to do, the one thing that is their duty is to uphold and protect the Constitution of the United States. Just that. Not to bring health care to everyone. Not to make sure their banks don't fail. Not to print up money left, right, and center. Just that one thing. Uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. And that is what needs to be hammered home in Congress today. If you don't elect someone who's going to do that, you're not addressing the problem. It is about ideology. It is about limited versus unlimited government. Americans do not believe in unlimited government. They do not believe in a government that can print as much money as it wants to do anything it wants, to look after anyone it wants, cradle to grave. We laughed at a country when we were growing up that did that. We laughed at a country that had 5-year plans and endless wars in Afghanistan. And look what happened to that country. I'm, of course, talking about the old Soviet Union. Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. So, it's a sucker's game, but we can renew America. We can bring this country back to its ideals, the ideals that we grew up on. Freedom, responsibility, limited government. We need sound money, We need the Congress to vote no to every bill that is not expressly authorized in the Constitution. The Constitution is a document to protect the people. It is to limit the government. That is the point. It is the rule of law. Not of men. It is the rule of law. If you do not follow the Constitution of the United States, what do you have? You have unlimited government. I think the people in this room understand that we cannot afford the path that we're headed down now of unlimited government. Well, I am ready to take the pledge to uphold the Constitution of the United States, and it looks like I'm out of time. And I hope you give me that opportunity.
Thank you very much. Mr. Deegan, if you could stay here, and we can have Larry and Nancy come back up. If you want to come back up, I do have 3 questions that were submitted to be asked, and again, they're going to be asked of all 3 candidates. Yeah, you want to come up here because it's easier to hear. Right? All right. The first question is, how did, or if you have not been an elected legislator yet, how would you vote on gay marriage?
Well, thank you. I think everybody in here knows how I voted on gay marriage. I was actually the floor leader last session, along with Senator Anthony Muse from Prince George's County. We worked together in our best effort to try and get that bill killed. Unfortunately, it passed, and I think hopefully we're going to be taking it to referendum. I believe in traditional marriage between a man and a woman.
Well, I'm married in a traditional marriage. 2 kids, 9 and 7, so all my personal preferences aside, we are facing a horrendous debt of $16 trillion, which is $80,000 per adult in the United States. We have to concentrate on the very important things. Now, gay marriage is not a federal matter. It should be left up to the states. I'll be going to Congress, looking at trying to protect the Constitution of the United States. I definitely would not be trying to pass any bills regarding gay marriage.
Thank you. I just want to start by saying one of my favorite family members is what Chris Rock would call the gay uncle. We all have a gay uncle. His name's Tom, and he is a wonderful man. And I would never want to withhold anything from him that I'm entitled to. I also come to bring up the horses again. I couldn't have horses and name them Secretariat because that name was already taken. I sing in a band. My band is called Release. I couldn't call ourselves the Beatles because that name was already taken. And I think the name marriage, the word marriage, the tradition marriage is established. It's already taken. If they had just done a word search and said control, find, replace all words that say civil marriage with and/or civil union, and just passed the civil unions law, we could have just done this. It was a real shortcut way out on the vote that they said, well, we have to use the word marriage because it's throughout the code. Otherwise, gays and lesbians won't get the same rights. Well, that's just a shortcut. The word marriage is already taken. Thanks.
All right. Second question is, are you pro-life?
Well, I think everybody in this room probably knows that I am pro-life. I'm the one that made the regulations on abortion clinics in this state change after the terrible, terrible tragedy in Cecil County where they found 40 unborn children, 30 and 40 unborn children in an abortion clinic. They would start the abortion in New Jersey. The doctor was not a doctor in Maryland. He was not allowed to be a doctor in Maryland. And they brought these women down after they had started the abortion in New Jersey in unclean, unsafe conditions. Women were nearly killed. Women have been killed in abortion clinics because they were not treated in the same way as any other ambulatory surgical clinic. While I think abortion is the taking of a life, I think that it is the law of the land, and I think that if we're going to have it, we need to protect women, and we need to make sure that they are in a safe environment. And we now have regulations that passed that are now doing that. And it was because of legislation that I put in, and now we've got it in regulation.
Again, I'd like to preface my remarks by saying that we have critical issues facing this country right now. Abortion, as lamentable as it may be, to some is not one of those critical issues. That is not the thing that I'm going to Congress to address. We have Obamacare. We have creeping corporatism. We have trillions of dollars of basically counterfeit money printing. These are the issues that we should be focusing on. Now, abortion, I think, that is something that must be addressed through a moral awakening amongst the people. I mean, there have been times when abortion was outlawed, and without a corresponding moral awareness in the people, that simply won't work. Now, I also believe that there are some things that can be done to decrease the incidence of abortion, like we can ease the process of adoption and educational programs, especially in charities. So, again, this is not a critical issue.
Thank you, Glenn. I would simply say that I'm pro-life, and that I think nobody in this room, or hopefully no American, is for murder. So then the question comes down to the debate over when life begins, because when you take a life, you're murdering. So I think reasonable Americans will, long after I'm gone, still be arguing whether it's conception, implantation, the first heartbeat, whether the first sensile nerves, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd rather not get wrapped around the axle, to use an Army phrase, and focus on policies that reduce unintended pregnancies and reduce the rate of abortion, and have everybody work together on those two things. Thanks.
All right. And lastly, as all three of you know, you're in a district that clearly is a majority Democrat registered district, which means that every vote is going to matter in terms of the general election. So my question to you is, are you ready, willing, and able after next Tuesday to stand in front of, have a press conference and stand in front of the, the second district endorsing whomever the voters choose as of Tuesday?
Oh, sure. Yeah. It is all fair. Anyway, that's absolutely, whether you're talking presidential race or the second district or Senate, we've got to come together as a party, because the alternative is just too grave. I mean, you talk about a guy talking in an open mic saying, wait till after the election, I'll have a little more flexibility. What he has is a lot of minions, whether it's Dutch Ruppersberger or John Sarbanes or Ben Cardin or it's just too much to bear to not support whoever's elected, and I'll happily support whoever that is.
It is all too easy for a politician to say the thing that he thinks people want to hear, and look where it has gotten us. Like I said, in the last 40 years, this country has gone from great to gravely in danger. This is in my lifetime. Now, I'm going to tell you something you may not want to hear. I get tired of all this talk about, will you endorse so-and-so, party unity above all. Party unity? No. It's all about principle, not party. Now, at the time, if according to my principles, I find that someone has been nominated that I agree with, yes, I'll endorse them. If not, then no. The party over principle is one of the things that has brought us to these straits. And politicians pandering to whatever audience they happen to be talking to. Now, I trust you out there. Don't need that pandering. I trust you understand the situation that we're in. We need people in Congress who will not pander.
I feel very strongly that where we may differ on certain issues, that I think we need to support the Republican against Dutch Ruppersberger. I think that's extremely important. No matter the outcome of this, I will be supporting whoever comes out of this race. Because no matter how any of us feel, Any candidate in this race is 100 miles ahead of Dutch Ruppersberger. We've got to get rid of Dutch Ruppersberger. I can work with both sides. I have worked with both sides. I would never have passed the bills I have passed without working with both sides. I don't compromise my principle. I never compromise my principles, but I work for consensus, because you never know when you're going to need the other person's vote. And I don't burn bridges. I like everybody in the Maryland Senate and the House. And it is never my intention to be so upset over a vote that I won't work with that person. I work with Democrats and Republicans, and I believe, since we know it's going to take an awful lot of Democrats to vote Dutch Ruppersberger out, I believe that I'm the person to convince those Democrats that I can do it. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Fiona. We certainly invite you, yes, I'm kicking you off the stage, but we certainly invite you to stay and obviously mingle with our members after we finish the business of the meeting. Up next, again, we're going to have the U.S. Senate candidates. So if I could have Mr. Rick Hoover and Mr. Corrigan Vaughn come on up. Mr. Hoover is going to go first. Again, the same rules apply. You have 4 minutes. The lady here in the sweater is going to give you the half sign when you have 30 seconds left, and high sign when your time is up. And just to warn both of you, you'll have the same 3 questions. Yes. Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Rick Hoover.
Good evening. Thank you for coming out, taking time away from your dinner or your TV news or whatever it happened to be. Somebody was asking me by way of Twitter about my bio, and I didn't know what they wanted to know. If they wanted to hear some kind of a glowing testimony or something, like I was a governor's appointee or a presidential appointee or something like that. No, I'm just a normal American character. I've been married for 29 years to a woman, the same woman. I do have a birth certificate if anybody wants to see it. I can produce an authentic birth certificate from Central Pennsylvania. But I'm here because of the words that are in this little booklet. This is a reduced version of the United States Constitution. I believe in the Constitution. I believe we need to follow the Constitution. I like the Constitution just the way God wrote it. Oh, I didn't get any response out of that. I said that to a friend of mine, you might know his name, Michael Peruga, and he commented that the Mormons believe that. And I'm not a Mormon. I don't know if they believe that or not, but I think it's a good thing. I think the Founding Fathers knew what they were doing. I think the vast majority of the Founding Fathers were Christians and Bible-believing, and they founded this nation on the right kinds of principles. But I believe we have a serious character problem in this country right now, and we've had that problem for some 50 years or more. In 1963, in August, a young man about 33 years old, gave a speech on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. You know who I'm talking about. His name is Martin Luther King. And he told us we have a problem. We have a character problem. We have a problem with how we look at people. We have a problem with how we deal with people. And I'm not a racist by any means. I have a friend here at Corrigan, he'll tell you, I think. He'll support me on that. One of my best friends is a black man. I have lots of black friends. I have several Latino friends. I'm not a racist whatsoever. Well, when people like Al Sharpton and Louis Farrakhan and certain other people take an issue like what's going on in Florida right now and want to turn it upside down and cry their heads off and run the country down, we have a problem. We have a character issue. We have a character issue. In fact, I read yesterday about Jesse Jackson commenting that when he's walking down the street and he hears somebody coming up behind him, he turns around and looks, and he said if it was a white man, he feels relieved. Huh? Coming from Jesse Jackson, and he said if he turns around and sees a white man following him, he feels relieved. Well, the obvious word is then if he sees a black man following him, he feels concerned. And that's coming from Jesse Jackson, and you know his credentials. We have a character issue. People know me. They know I'm consistent. And I'll give you the answer to your questions right now. I'm pro-life. Somebody back here is walking around with a little baby. If you got a baby in your stomach and it's growing, guess what? It's alive. It's a human being. It wouldn't be growing if it wasn't a human being. So no, we can't do that. We have a character problem. We have a problem with people that call themselves progressives and everything else because they're tearing this country apart. And unfortunately, the Democratic Party has aligned themselves with those people. That's what we need to deal with. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Corrigan Bond.
You know, our country was founded on Christian Judeo principles, and just indulge me, and if this is a part of our 4 minutes, so be it. Father, I thank you for once again bringing us with these great Americans who came here to be divinely inspired on where they need to go. Our nation is in trouble, Lord, and some of the words that I'm going to say might affect someone here that can understand that it's got to be about people and principles and not about party and politics. So let me digress and you come through me to show the real leadership that we can have together. Amen. How you guys doing? I'm putting the mic down for 2 reasons. My name is Corrigan Vaughn, and I'm asking for your vote for the United States Senate. I want you to go to my website, www.vaughnforamerica. It's about putting people and principles over party and politics. And I have to apologize to you guys because normally I'd be a little bit more excited. But about 2 hours ago, my nephew died. He was waiting for a heart. So I'm going to try to get through this as best as I can. At the end of the day, our nation is in trouble. And I'm going to be honest with you. I've listened to all of the new commercials on the fellow candidates that are running, and they talk about being career politicians and they're outsiders. But I've never been in the Secret Service. I've never worked in Congress. I've been about people and principles, and I'm not going to talk about sound bites. I'm going to give you solutions. Go to my website. Look at my 5-point plan on how we can fix our economy. Go to my website, look at my 22-point plan talking about the proven deal. And also go to my website and look at what I call the congressional responsibility for accountability and principles. We've got to make those people who go to Washington for us be accountable to us. It's time for us to let them understand that we don't want any celebrities, we want servants. And with your help, I want to be your next United States Senator. Now let me share something that I didn't want to say, but I'll say it this way. I am the only electable candidate in the race for United States Senate. That might sound very arrogant, but it's the honest to God's truth. Out of every debate that has been put out in this state, I've gone, whether it was a liberal debate, whether it was a conservative debate, whether it was a crazy debate. I went to stand on the principles of the Constitution, understanding that we need limited government. It's time for our government to be out of our bedrooms, our boardrooms, our bathrooms, and yes, our delivery rooms. I'm the only candidate that both Senator Jacobs and Delegate McDonough can tell you that went down to Washington and strongly spoke against same-sex marriage here in Maryland. Folks, it's very simple. Maryland's Constitution says, under common law, that marriage is the union between one man and one woman. It's not about a biblical principle, it's our Constitution. We're in a constitutional crisis right now because the Teflon leprechaun wants to go to the White House, and we're going to stop him, and we're going to stop Ben Cardin with your help. I want to be the next senator in the great state of Maryland, and I don't care about sound bites. Sound bites are fine. Solutions are better. If you've heard all of the rest, look at the rest. I'm not no better than anybody else, and let me say something about Jesse Jackson. He's a bastard. I know him personally. Let me say this very seriously, and some of you don't know this. I'm the godson of the late Dr. Ralph David Abernathy. When Martin Luther King died, Jesse Jackson was not there. 1 hour after he died, he took his hand, put his hand in that blood, put it on his shirts and said that Martin Luther King died in his arms. Any person that's that heinous, you can't believe. If you'll fall for anything, you go for anything. That problem that happened in Florida, I have to say it this way. It ain't a racial issue. Bottom line, a kid was shot, and we've got to have all of the answers. We don't have the answers, don't rush to judgment. That gentleman that shot him and that young man were in a perfect storm that unfortunately a tragedy happened, and we got to come together. Americans are better than what these liberal hacks are doing. I need your vote. Vote for me, Vaughn for U.S. Senate. Go to my website, www.Vaughn4America.com. Putting people and principles over party and politics. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's right. Mr. Hoover and Mr. Knight, you guys want to go ahead and just stand up? Again, I think you made it fairly clear with both the pro-life issue and the gay marriage issues to where you stand in your speeches. So then my question to you is again, obviously we live in Maryland, a state where we have, where Republicans are largely outnumbered by Democrats. So my question to you again is, after next Tuesday, when the voting is finished, would you be willing to stand and publicly endorse whomever wins the race?
Absolutely, I will. Because we have, as I said, we have an issue that needs to be dealt with. We have an undercurrent in this country, an undercurrent of people who want to change our principles and change what we believe in. I was a former minister, I am a former minister, so I can talk for a long, long time if you want me to. But of course we can't do that because they're not giving us enough time to do that. But I want to read something to you that I came across. You might be interested in listening to this. See if I have the right spot here. There are, besides eternal truths, such as freedom, justice, etc., that are common to all states of society. But communism abolishes eternal truths. It abolishes all religion and all morality. Instead of constituting them on a new basis, it therefore acts in contradiction to all past historical experiences. The Communist Manifesto. That's what I think of the Communist Manifesto. But we have a lot of people in this country that are buying into that. They're buying into socialism, progressivism, whatever you want to call it. In the end, it's communism. It's anti-Christian, it's anti-God, it's anti-freedom, it's anti-rights, it's anti-property, it's anti-all these things. And the Democratic Party is supporting it. That's why we've got to get them out. Our so-called president, who I don't even consider to be legitimate, has given appointments, recess appointments, that were not legal. He has at least one communist on his staff. What kind of a president of the United States is that? We have a character issue. Ben Cardin is part of the problem. Harry Reid is part of the problem. Barbara Mikulski is part of the problem. We have got to get together here, people, or we're going to destroy our country. I will support whoever the candidate is, but you've got to support us, and you've got to get out there and help us to get more people involved, and talk to your Democratic friends and convince them that we need their help.
Well, first of all, to answer your question, there's a falseness in your premise. And let me explain why I say there's a falseness in your premise. There's 147 municipalities in the state of Maryland. 103 of them have more than the large majority of conservative and Republicans who are running them. So this is not a Democratic state. We are a conservative state who needs to wake up at the end of the day. The reality is, the reason why we're called a blue state is because, as Delegate McDonough and Senator Jacobs will tell you, down there in the Annapolis Asylum with the Teflon leprechaun, they tend to outshine the real American conservatives that live in this great state. Now, to answer your question on will I support whoever is elected, well, I'm understanding that the great conservatives of this great state will elect me, so yes, I will. Great, thank you very much, Senator.